When the amazing Digital Circus ends, what happens if everything Glitch built suddenly loses momentum? That sounds dramatic, but it is a real possibility. And honestly, it is something not enough people are talking about. Because right now, it feels unstoppable. The numbers are massive, the characters are everywhere, and the internet just keeps feeding it more attention. You might even feel like it is too big to fail. But that exact feeling, that is usually where things start getting complicated. Let me explain what I think. Glitch Productions did not just get lucky. They built this moment. Over time, they developed a style that feels distinct, fast, expressive, and slightly chaotic in a way that works perfectly online. When Digital Circus arrived, it did not feel random. It felt like everything they had been doing suddenly clicked at once. The tone, the character design, the pacing, even the mystery behind the story, all of it aligned with how internet audiences engage with content now. But here's something interesting, and maybe you noticed it too. The success of Digital Circus is so overwhelming that it almost rewrites how people see Glitch as a whole. Instead of being a studio with multiple projects, they start being seen as the Digital Circus Studio. And that shift matters more than it seems, because once that association is locked in, everything that comes next gets filtered through it, and that is where the pressure begins. Digital Circus is not just a hit, it is the kind of hit that creates expectations that are almost impossible to meet again. Not because Glitch lacks talent, but because viral success at that scale depends on timing, novelty, and a very specific emotional connection with the audience. You cannot just recreate that on demand. So, the real question starts forming in the background. What happens when the phenomenon ends? Not when it slows down, not when it becomes less popular, when it actually ends. Because endings change everything. In the best possible scenario, Glitch treats Digital Circus as a launchpad, not a peak. They take everything they gained, the audience, the experience, the confidence, and they use it to build something broader. Instead of chasing the same idea again, they expand outward. Different tones, different genres, maybe even completely unexpected formats. And there is evidence they can do that. Murder Drones already showed they are capable of telling stories that feel completely different while still keeping their identity. That flexibility is rare, especially in independent studios that suddenly go viral. It means they are not creatively locked into one formula. At the same time, their distribution model gives them a huge advantage. They are not waiting on networks or traditional platforms. They already have direct access to a global audience. That means they can test ideas faster, adjust based on feedback, and build momentum in a way that larger studios sometimes cannot. So if everything goes right, Glitch evolves. They become known not for one series, but for consistently creating interesting ones. Digital Circus becomes the moment that opened the door, not the only reason people walked through it. But there is another path, and this is where things get uncomfortable. What if the audience is not actually loyal to Glitch, but only to Digital Circus? That distinction is subtle, but it changes everything. Because when people connect deeply with a specific story, they are not always looking for the next project. They are looking for more of that exact feeling, the same characters, the same tone, the same emotional experience. And when that is gone, interest can fade faster than expected. You have probably seen this before. Something becomes huge, everyone is talking about it, it dominates the conversation, and then when it ends, the space it occupied just disappears. Not because people stopped caring entirely, but because nothing else filled that exact role in the same way. And if Glitch releases something new that feels too different, part of the audience might disconnect. But if they release something too similar, it risks feeling repetitive or forced. That balance is extremely difficult to manage. And this is where expectation becomes a real problem. Because now, every new project is not judged on its own terms. It is judged against Digital Circus, against its numbers, its characters, its impact. Even a successful series can feel like a step down if it does not reach that same level of attention. That kind of comparison slowly shifts perception. Suddenly, good is not enough anymore. Now everything has to be huge, and maintaining that level consistently, that is where many studios struggle. So when you look at all of this together, it becomes clear that the future of Glitch does not depend on whether Digital Circus ends. It depends on what replaces it. The real challenge is not avoiding failure. It is redefining success. Can they create new characters that people attach to just as strongly, even if the style is different? Can they build stories that generate discussion, theories, and emotional investment again, but in new ways? Can they keep evolving without losing the core identity that made them stand out in the first place? Because if they manage to do that, something interesting happens. Digital Circus stops being a risk and starts becoming proof Proof that they can create something that resonates globally. Proof that their approach works. Proof that they are not just part of a trend, but capable of shaping one. But if they cannot, then Digital Circus becomes a ceiling instead of a foundation. And that is a very different outcome. So now everything circles back to one idea. The problem is not that Digital Circus will end. The problem is what comes after it, because that next step decides whether Glitch becomes something bigger or stays defined by one moment. Now, I am curious, when Digital Circus finally ends, do you think Glitch can pull off another hit like that? Or was this a one-time phenomenon? Let me know what you think, because this really decides everything for their future. Thanks for watching.